Warning, this video contains high levels of technical failure, including but not limited to spazzing autofocus, corrupted or lost footage, off-screen shots, and creator stress. So if you can handle all of that, enjoy.
Are you focused? Are you working? I believe you are. Awesome. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So it's Christmas time, which means everybody's busy with something. Everybody's trying to get with family, they're planning events, they're trying to get shopping done, trying to just make everything as festive as possible. I've been busy myself, and it made me wonder, wouldn't it be nice if we could get a little Christmas help? I had originally planned on making some interesting baubles to put on our tree, but when I saw this globe at the hobby store, I just couldn't pass it up. I took out the bottom to scale up my floor, because what I had originally planned was some gnomes, taking decorations out of a box and putting them up. So once I had an idea about the size I was using, I started drawing out a box to cut out. For a little fine tuning and some super handy knife work, I now had a template that I was ready to fold and bend into shape. Using the back of my ruler, I worked each section to keep nice crisp bends. What I also found out is that the red pencil wouldn't erase, so to remedy this, I just colored the entire inside of the box red. With a little help from some crafting glue, I folded each section into place until I had a handy little box that I could show off. Once I had that finished, I could start working on the floor and scaling everything else around that. I had originally planned on drawing this floor out and just coloring it with pencils to create the effect I was going for, but it didn't take long to realize that was a bad idea. At this point, there's supposed to be an incredible montage about how I used popsicle sticks to piece the floor together. However, that footage decided to disappear, so instead you get... I chose to use my Dremel to cut off the excess bits, but the smell of burning wood quickly made me change my mind. I soon remembered that I had a handsaw, and once I remembered where it was, I could proceed to cut the rest of the floor off a little more efficiently, if not a bit awkwardly. It only took a bit of grumbling and a few awkward off-screen poses, but I finally managed to end up with a ground floor. Now to give it that nice, deep floor coloring, I decided to use a wood stain that I found outside. I'm not even kidding, I literally found this sitting outside. I'm pretty sure we used it for another project at some point. I think it said something about cherries somewhere on the packaging at one point. But, I mean, it seemed to do a pretty decent job. After a couple heavy coats, I was able to wipe off the excess and wind up with something that was honestly a little impressive. I mean, look at this thing. Turned out better than I could have expected. Hell, it's almost as good as our actual floor. Alright, folks. This is where it gets weird. Okay, not really. I just start sculpting. It might as well be weird. Anyhow, it's time to start making gnomes. Now, the wire I had planned to use was a little too thick for their size, so I used these paper clips instead, and they worked out perfectly. I just bent a couple into shape, cut into size, and put them in the holder. Once I had both pieces firmly locked in, I could begin twisting the wire until I got something that kind of resembled a little dude. I got the idea for this tool after watching a video from north of the border where he sculpted a tiny link and quite frankly did a far better job than I did with my gnomes. So you should probably go check out his video if you want to see some quality work. I'll put a link down below. As far as the tool though, I've been quite impressed. It made my job a lot easier. I actually had somebody call me out on my Instagram page when I posted the teaser photo of the gnome, wondering how I didn't just crush the finger with my giant calloused mechanic fingers. Well, now you know. Speaking of Instagram, if you haven't followed me already, you should probably do so. You'll get a whole bunch of teaser photos of upcoming videos, as well as other work that I don't usually post. So, be something to look into. I'll put another link down below. You know, this is normally the part where I tell you the processes I went through to make this little figure, but quite frankly, I don't remember which ones I used that worked. I spent so much time on these little dudes working and reworking clay just to make it work that it all kind of blended together. I just kept shoving clay around until I got the form I was looking for. So after spending the better part of an afternoon working on this guy, I've got to say, I'm impressed with how he turned out. I like him so much, I made a second one, as well as a cat to go, just really round out the scene. Unfortunately, somewhere in the process, I lost the footage for the other gnome as well as the cats, but you'll see them later in the video. So for now, let's throw these guys into the oven and we can move on with the project. I mean, it's not that hard, right? The instructions are simple and straightforward. Set oven to temperature, bake for X amount of minutes. Carry on with your project once it cools down. One thing I recommend though is checking your equipment and keeping an eye on your project throughout the process. I went ahead and checked the temperature on my oven and still ended up with crispy little figures. Now, thankfully, the damage was only limited to the hat and bottom of the cat for the most part. So I think we can carry on. Actually, I'm going to carry on. I spent like 5, 6 hours on all three of these, and I'm not redoing it. But just a heads up, just keep an eye on things. To try and save this disaster, the smart thing to do would be to use a primer as a base and get as much paint adhesion as possible. However, I didn't have any, so I didn't.
Hmm.
As I kept painting, I realized my worst fear. The clay held the paint well, but all of the burnt sections lost their porosity and took multitudes of coats to get a decent coverage. I kept adding layers, allowing a bit of time to dry in between each, just hoping for the best. Eventually, I set them to the side so I could start working on the cat, which was its own disaster. There are 3 cats in this house that I can draw inspiration from, but instead of painting the simple black and white one, I chose the orange one, the one with the most complicated coat, because, I mean, he's got the personality. He's the one that actively plays with the toys. He's the one we actually caught stealing Christmas ornaments. He's the one who will attack anything that moves just a little too fast. He watches TV. Yeah. So of course it was only natural to use him as an inspiration, but man, those colors. So after a couple of base coats of different oranges, I set the cat aside to dry and returned my attention to the gnomes. They had started taking color really well at this point, so I filled in the beard and the back of the hair, just started bringing in some different colors, and eventually covered it with a dark brown wash to accentuate some of the details. So once they were done and set aside, I returned to the cat, where I started working on some of the striping, adding a couple of different off-whites, some more oranges, some more yellows, just really trying to work in the details. And I hated it. It got so bad. It got really bad, and it didn't stop there. So I'm back. Now, since this is all coming out at once, you guys had no idea I was gone, but I had to stop working for a couple of days because I screwed up my back and I couldn't position myself to paint or hold miniatures. Now, I would love to say my job screwed up my back, that I lifted something heavier than I should have, that I was overworked, some sort of valid excuse, but the only place I was overworked was hunching over these miniatures and hyper focusing on this cat because I have terrible posture. I mean, look at this guy. I mean, he's hunched over like a little gremlin, shoulders drawn up, all discombobulated, trying to make sure he gets every last detail and ignoring his own health. I mean, it's no
Hey,
wonder
man.
he.
Look, I'm doing the best I can. How about cut me some slack here?
Yeah, well, maybe if you were better at what you did, we wouldn't be behind like this. We wouldn't be in pain, and then maybe we
Hey,
could.
why don't you come up here and then maybe we can get back on schedule? That way we can. Whoa, hey!
Artist. Anyways. So I painted the cat white. After a few days of sit back and looking at everything, I decided it was best to just start over with a clean slate. And I gotta say, best decision I made. Turned out really well. And as we wrap this last bit of painting up, that's it. We can finally move on to assembly. Oh yeah, the lights. There's gonna be lights. But I had to paint those because when I went to find multicolored LED lights, there weren't any. Wait. What? So I painted these because it's what I had at the time. Alright, moving on. After labeling our little decoration box, I could begin positioning everything on the floor. Now, I had to be careful how everything was laid out because I still had to fit the globe down over everything. I got the cat set up in his box, placed on the floor, and started positioning the gnomes around him. Once I got everybody in position, I could mark the spots to drill for their pegs to go through. I did this using a pin vise and one of the smallest drill bits I could find. Once I got them in position, a touch of super glue helped lock them in for good. Once everyone was locked in, I could start working the lights through. And this was a painstaking process because I couldn't drill a hole big enough for the lights to easily fit through. So one by one I had to force them through, scratching off all of the paint that I used, forcing me to go back and redo each one. But once I got them all through, I figured it was a good idea to make sure they still worked before I glued everything in. I figured a bit of tinsel and some Christmas baubles on the floor would help really sell the feel of the piece. I was worried about it being a little too busy. I know that less can be more, but when it comes to Christmas decorations, more is more. Once everything was glued down and in place, I could start wrapping the LEDs around everything to really sell the energy of the piece. And I think that'll just about do it. So after suffering through all this, I think we deserve some decent glamour shots. And with that, we can finally wrap this project up. Well, almost. One last thing left to do. I know I had mentioned putting all this inside this globe earlier, but it still looks like it's going to be a bit tricky. Ah, ha 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 ha. Alright, closed up and locked off for good. Now, as much as I fussed through this video, I actually had a lot of fun doing this. It was fun to just take a random idea that I had and bring it to this point. I honestly wasn't sure if it was going to even work out right. Now I've just got a little Christmas ornament that is different from everyone else's. But thank you for sticking with me through. Yeah, thank you for sticking through this video with me. I know the video quality was horrible. I didn't realize the autofocus was going out of control until it was too late to do anything about it. And then all the lost footage. But it was fun. It was great. If you want to check out some other videos on YouTube for Christmas ideas, I know Bill Making Stuff actually put out a video a couple of days ago where he did baubles. He kind of had the same idea I did. Actually, his idea was a lot better and a lot more creative. So go check him out. I'll put a link to his video down below. But in the meantime, I have to wrap this up because I've got about 10 minutes to get this posted. So I'm gonna wrap that up and then go do stuff with my family because it is the morning of Christmas Eve. So y'all take care, enjoy the holidays, and above all, have a Merry Christmas.